it's Haley Wood, your therapeutic skin coach. Don't mind my wet hair. It takes about 7 years for it to dry. And I wanted to film a little farewell video to not only 2019, but the 2010s. This has been quite the decade for me. I became an esthetician in 2006, so those first 3 years were sort of just me figuring out my bearings, like getting my hands on people, and just navigating what it's like to have a full-time career at 19 years old. And the fact that I have spent all of the 2010s in the same career and have had such changes and growth, I feel like it's worth sort of exploring and looking back and kind of decompressing so that I can truly look into the 2020s as a time to, grow up and see where I really want to go with this career and where do I want to have the most impact and have the most change in this industry. Because if I'm calling out for people to make changes within themselves and within this industry, then there's a certain amount of accountability that I have to take on as well. So I thought that it would be a good time to do it. Today is the end of the year. It's December 31st. I'm navigating this really crazy space of mine, trying to clean it up, give a really nice fresh redo for the new year. And I'm just inspired to talk a little bit about my regrets as an esthetician, my hopes as an esthetician, what I've learned in the past decade, what I hope will change in the new year, the new decade, the 2020s. So first, it's interesting because when I really think back in 2009, I actually feel like that was such a jump off point for me as an esthetician. I spent that year moving states, so I transitioned from being licensed from one state to another and immediately saw the differences in how people adapted when their skin would freak out. I lived in Wisconsin before I lived in Texas. So Wisconsin is the first state I was licensed in. And it was interesting because I felt like people in Wisconsin, what they had to deal with was much different than what people in Texas had to deal with. So I learned really quickly in my career this adaptability to environment and just tried really hard to fit in. So something that I've noticed has been sort of my theme throughout this decade has been my inability to take up space, how I am much more prone to shrink my personality, shrink myself down, so then if even just the slightest glimmer of light or glimmer of personality comes out, it can kind of shock people who are in my surroundings because I'm so used to being small. It also really freaked me out when people would see me, when they would see me clearly, regardless of my attempt to being very tiny personality. I think it's my survival mechanism as an immigrant that, changed complete environments and just wanted to be unseen because I didn't want to get picked on. I didn't really want to cause a stir. I'm still so much like that where even when I'm just going at a restaurant and I'm gluten-free, and if anybody draws attention to the fact that I'm gluten-free, I'm like, oh, no, don't accommodate me, even though I have to be gluten-free for my health. It's interesting how my whole decade has kind of come up to this main theme of Haley, it's okay, just take up space. You deserve it. The world deserves to have you be your full self. Otherwise, everyone's just going to get these fragments of you and they're really not going to get the full experience of what you're able to provide. And this is really what I try to teach my clients too. But it's taken me this decade of experiences for me to be like, oh, duh. And I think starting in this career at such a young age, I just didn't know so much and I had to kind of learn as I go. A lot of people, they go to college and then they get an internship and they might get a preliminary job where they're allowed to mess up and they make those mistakes along the way. But I didn't really have that. I just was like dropped into a career where I didn't know what the heck I was doing. And for any aspiring estheticians who are watching this, that's very much the experience. You get only so much education in a schooling environment, and you basically just have to figure it out and go. And at 19 years old, I didn't have a lot of the coping skills. I didn't really know how to set boundaries. I wasn't as equipped to talk about social issues. I wasn't equipped to express my honest opinion about things. I just became like a very agreeable, small energy that would just do the job. And whatever my clients wanted, that's what I would give them. But that's not really the role of an esthetician. I am meant to have agency. I'm meant to have a bit of an authority in a setting in which somebody is paying me to provide them a service that is going to up-level their experience in this life by connecting them with what their skin is giving them and telling them. But I didn't really think I had that power because I was just so young and unaware of the capabilities that I would eventually tap into as an esthetician and as a person, as a human, as a woman. And I think too, just the transition into 2019 with conversations of female empowerment and releasing a lot of shame that we have in terms of feeling like we can't speak up, because just kind of like how my generation and generations before were taught to be, like being small and being polite is really the customer service persona that I was taught would be a super successful persona to have, and that's what would make me thrive in this industry. But a lot of what I feel I regret in these past 10 plus years is the fact that I didn't step up into my power, and I really allowed people to sort of trick me or bully me or just push me in a direction that really didn't align with my intuition. And I really was not great about setting boundaries on either end. I let people walk all over me, and then I overshared because I felt like, okay, well, we were already created this like bond because I'm letting you be late to your appointment, overshare what's going on. I'm not charging you for your extra time. Okay, I'll tell you about what's going on with me then, And that exchange, I think, probably works in certain dynamics, but not all of them. And I just was never great at understanding that people don't necessarily need to know about my life. And I just kind of got really great about talking about what I knew, which is what my personal experience was. I wasn't really equipped to speak on different issues, and even didn't know how to kind of set a boundary with that as well. And also too, I think now that I'm 32, I didn't realize the amount of women that deal with hormonal imbalance, because I've seen such a growth in this since I've run my own business, which I started in 2014. And I just remember so many times, a woman would come in and just got married. So when are you going to have kids? Are you excited to have kids? And then whenever they would just have a kid, I'd be like, okay, well, are you going to have another baby? When are you going to have your next one? Just lacking the mindfulness of how insensitive that can be, especially because I'm in that experience now where the moment I got married, when are you going to have kids? And now it's like, okay, well, we've been trying. Okay, well, you just got to relax, then it'll be all fine. And it's like, I don't like and appreciate that feedback. And I realized that nobody really needed that from me, especially as a really young, uneducated person when it comes to that conversation. I just didn't know what to say. So I said the very basic surface things that I thought were just small talk, but really were invasive to somebody's experience, or potentially invasive. And another thing that I feel like I regret and I have been trying to shed this from myself, is just, enabling those fear-based beauty beliefs that people have when they first come in. And over the last, I would say, like 2 years, I feel like I've really shed this for myself, and I have found an empowerment in my language when I meet a new person and when I work with a client. I feel like I can really help them with their own personal conversation with themselves, their own self-talk, the way they speak about their skin, the way they speak about their health. But this is something that I've had to do with myself in order to learn how to help others with it. I have always been the person who has just jumped to negative self-talk. I'm a perfectionist by nature, and I just expect so much out of myself that when something goes wrong, I don't necessarily see it as a redirection. I don't necessarily see it as a signal. I would just take it as there's something wrong with me. I'm imperfect. No one's going to love me. And I would spiral with that. And when I look at it from a client's perspective who's going through a similar experience with their skin, it breaks my heart. And throughout the last decade plus, I wasn't great about helping them crawl out of that spiraling hole where the negative self-talk was spiraling. I almost sort of enabled it by being like, okay, well, here's an opportunity to sell a procedure, sell a product, have them come back. Let me latch on to that fear-based area, that beauty belief that they feel they have a low self-worth on, and let me pounce on it and make sure that I milk it for what I can so I can make money. And I hated that mindset, but that was very much the mindset that was taught to many estheticians of my generation. I'm hoping that this has sort of shed over the last few years. I've been an instructor and I mentor estheticians now, and that's something that I really try to drive in, but who really knows? I just don't want to have a fear-based conversation when it comes to skin. If anybody learns anything from me, it's that skin is communicating, and skin is an organ that doesn't really need you to tell it what to do. It just wants to work with you. It wants to tell you, like, hey, by the way, you might need more sleep, or hey, by the way, I'm a little depleted in these vitamins, or hey, by the way, like, could you drink a little bit more water? Could you be a little bit nicer to me? Like, it's asking very little, but yet we do so much fear-based procedures and practices on it, and the self-talk is unreal, and it's perpetuated with products and protocols that estheticians and beauty experts perpetuate from all of this anti-aging and problematic skin vocabulary that is just so outdated. We don't need it anymore. And that is my biggest promise, that in the 2020s, like, I know that I have been hopefully shedding this, and you've all sort of acknowledged the fact that language and mindfulness language is really, really important to me, and I am there to help you reprogram some of that negative self-talk so that you can finally see the radiant human that you are. But I perpetuated a lot of it because I was ill-equipped, and I was also suffering. I was feeling those exact same feelings, and the way that an esthetician or a professional would talk to me, like, that's what got to me, is like, yeah, that is wrong with you, and let's fix it. And the problem is none of that ever actually worked. It took for people to be like, actually, Haley, you have fine skin, or actually, Haley, you're not overweight, or actually, Haley, like, your body is working really hard for you. For me to be like, all right, okay, maybe I'm creating something that isn't actually going on. And then once I started to just silence all of that negativity, every answer sort of came forward, and the right professionals came into my community to help support me. And that's who I find to be now as an esthetician in a person's space. But even just a few years ago, especially when influencers first sort of came out and were asking for free treatments, I didn't know how to navigate it. I didn't know how to navigate a lot of my business and a lot of my career as an esthetician, because I just sort of felt like, well, I just need a boss to tell me what to do and I'll do it. That's just the mentality that I grew up with, is like, I honor, enlist, and authority. And I didn't really feel like I would ever have enough space to be that person. And once I realized I'm that person for me, and people are paying me to be that person for them, at least in the context of a facial and in conversation of their skin health, I realized, okay, I have a responsibility here. And if I don't just step up, then I can just kiss this career goodbye. I can kiss my business goodbye. And for as many mistakes as I've made, I've learned a lot of valuable lessons. And honestly, my biggest intentions for 2020 is to lead with the heart, never silence my intuition, always come back to taking care of myself first, because the more I nurture me, the better I can nurture other people. I'm never going to put myself last anymore. I did that for way too long, and it's not worth it, And it's the same thing that I would tell a client. Put yourself first, nurture yourself first, find people who are willing to nurture you and see you for who you are. If you find somebody who tells you that they think that you've got something worth fixing, then they're not really seeing who you are. They're not seeing what the imbalance truly is, because nothing ever needs fixing. Everything needs tending to and nurturing and just acknowledgement. And those little shifts in language make a huge difference in your long-term health, whether it's your skin health or your internal health or your emotional well-being. It all is a reflection of itself. It all correlates with each other. I hope I can do this for another 10 years. I'm going to try. I'm excited to see what happens with Therapeutic Skin Coach. Usually I reflect back just on the year, and, reflecting from 2018 to 2019 kind of depressed me because it didn't have as much growth as I anticipated because I was really sick. And when I look at it as a decade, I am just in awe of how I have flourished as a person. And I really want to let go and release some of those mistakes and just take the lessons into this new chapter with me. So I hope this was useful, and I hope that me taking accountability of what I've made mistakes of in this industry and as a person and as a human being will hopefully help, maybe some of you do the same, or help, with any of you that had experience with me, have some closure. Happy to talk to any of you individually. Like, I'm a huge person that I want resolve. I want to just communicate as best as possible. So happy to have any conversations with any of you, even if it wasn't with me, just to help you sort of find that even place to start your new decade with. And yeah, I'm excited to see what's coming up. I have a couple of intentions and resolutions personally and for my business that I look forward to sharing in time. But in the meantime, I hope that you have a blessed new year, that you are safe and healthy, that you are magnetic to, attract the abundance of love, wealth, health, happiness, everything that you fully deserve. There's only one of you in this entire universe, and you deserve to live your best life. You deserve to attract everything that you want. And I am one of those people too, and I deserve that as well. And hopefully me standing in my power inspires you to do the same. So I love you. Thank you for watching. Happy New Year. I can't believe it's going to be 2020. Ooh, wow. All right. Take care. We'll see you next year.